In this lesson, we're going to take a look at two of the more common methods that are in most classes, the toString method and the equals method. So we're going to start out by pasting this code into a new class called square, and then we're also going to create a class called square tester to take a look at that. So we'll be making a square class. So here's square. Right, and if you take a look at the square class, there is a constructor where we say what the side length is. There's a method for area that multiplies the side length times itself, and there's a method for perimeter that multiplies the side length times 4, and then there's our state variable for side length. So that's what square looks like. And then our other class we're going to call square tester. And this one's going to need a main, but I didn't create a main in there because I have that in my code over here. And so this is going to create a new square, create another new square. They both are going to have the same side length. And then it's going to print out square number 1. So we'll find out what does it actually do when it prints a square. So it printed square and then an at symbol 33909,752. It's not very useful. It doesn't really mean anything to me that I know it's a square, but that's about all it tells me. So we want to think about what could we do so that it actually would help me understand something about that. And that's the reason we're going to use this method. This is the toString method, and it's going to take whatever square is and change it into a string, return that. And the important thing to know about a square is probably what the side length is. So that's what I'm going to tell Eclipse to return when I print it. So I'll go back over to my square. I'm going to add a new method after my perimeter method called the, oh, looks like I did not copy that correctly. So here I have my toString inside my square class. Let's go back over to square tester and see if it prints something more useful now. Now, if I print something about square 1, it said side length equals 5. That's pretty useful, tells me a lot about my square. So if you want to print something useful, you create a method public. It's going to return a string. Its name is toString, and that's always what will be printed whenever you print a class. It'll look to see if it has a toString method and print it out. Right. Now let's change that method a little bit. Maybe we want to print the side length and also the perimeter. We can add that into the string that's returned. And save that file. Go back over to the square tester. Let's run it again. So this time it says side length equals 5, perimeter equals 20. We can print anything we want in a toString method. We just have to come in here and tell it to return whatever it is that we think would be the most important thing to print about that item. All right, let's check something else. Let's go into our square tester and let's check to see if those two squares are equal to each other. Here's the square tester. After we print out our toString, we're going to say if square 1 equals square 2, print out they're equal. Otherwise, print out they're not. And what should we expect? They both have the same side length. Does that make the squares equal to each other? It says they're not equal. So what the equals method is actually checking is to see if they're the exact same squares stored in the exact same place of memory. And in this case, they're not equal to each other. We could check to see if square 1 is equal to square 1, and it'll say they're equal. But if we check to see if square 1 is equal to square 2, they're not. So we have to decide what would make the two squares equal to each other, and we're going to add an equals method in here in addition to our toString method. So here's what that equals method is going to look like. We'll put it over in Eclipse and then take a look at what it says. So it's a public method. It returns a Boolean, so it's going to return either a true or a false. We're going to send it a square, and then we're going to check to see if the square we send its side length is the same as this square that we're wondering about. So notice the this tells it the square we're wondering about, that we're running it on, and then this is the square we're sending it. So if we come over here, we're going to check to see if square 1, the square we're wondering about, is equal to square 2, the square we're sending it. And this time it says they're equal because we told it they're equal if the side lengths are the same. So that's how you create an equals method. Your job in the homework for today is going to be to go back to your circle class, add a toString method that tells about the radius, circumference, and area, and then add an equals method that says they're equal if the radius is the same and not equal if they're not the same. And then you're going to run some tests in your circle tester method to make sure that your code did what we just talked about.